Sans Pants Radio, Australia's hottest podcast network.
This is News Fighters, where we fight the news so you don't have to. With Dylan Behan.
Yes, hello infidels. Welcome to the News Fighters podcast for today, Friday, the 20th of August, 2021. News Fighters, we're live, interactive, and unscripted. I'm your host, Dylan Behan, the Ashraf Ghani of Wacky Clips. But first, to a debacle unfolding overseas for a change.
The Taliban is now in full control of Afghanistan, seizing the capital Kabul with no resistance.
20 years after the ousting of one of the most feared and brutal regimes ever seen, the Taliban is back in control.
Militants took hold of the country's presidential palace, and the group claimed the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan was back.
Normally you only see that many brain-dead blokes with guns at a NRL players' boys bonding weekend. Yes, after 2 whole decades of war, the Taliban has won. Unless, of course, you're Channel 10 and can't count.
The Taliban takes control of Kabul after a decade of war.
1 decade, 2 decades, who's counting? Besides, who cares? In Australia, we only count everything in prime ministerships anyway.
For a treacherous end to Australia's long involvement in Afghanistan through 7 prime ministerships.
Yes, only 7 prime ministerships, but hey, Peter Dutton, want to make it 8? You know you want to. Yes, and very confronting scenes of chaos at the airport as people were trying to escape the country.
Overnight, the airport tarmac overrun, a rush to the fast-closing exit.
Humanity's surge on the airport could be seen from space. It had started right back at the terminal.
Yes, though that terminal rush footage there that the ABC used was actually filmed at a completely different kind of pointless and drawn-out exercise in American macho futility, a Dallas Cowboys NFL game. Yes, and being the busiest day ever at Kabul airport, you just know they only rostered on one barista at the Starbucks there. Yeah, I have 200 lattes for barreled 200 lattes. And speaking of people fleeing the country, turns out the Afghani president had already made a run for the exit.
The Afghan president, Ashraf Ghani, fled the country.
Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country.
Ashraf Ghani releasing a statement. In order to avoid bloodshed, I thought it would be better to leave.
Yes, stepping down to avoid bloodshed in Australia is called the reverse Kevin Rudd move. President Ashraf Ghani also said in his statement that he was fulfilling a long-standing commitment he had to take his girls on a family trip to Hawaii. Speaking of the daggy dad himself, Scott Morrison had some harsh words for the Taliban.
In a statement this evening, Scott Morrison demands the Taliban allow people to leave peacefully and warns Taliban leaders they'll be held fully accountable for any political killings or reprisals, but doesn't say by whom or how.
Yeah, Scott Morrison there very much channeling the energy of an unarmed shopping centre security guard looking on as bank robbers with machine guns forklift out ATMs. Hey guys, can you stop robbing that bank, please? Please? You're going to be in big trouble, okay? Yes, and it turns out Scott Morrison wasn't the only coalition MP releasing slightly foolish statements.
National Senator Matt Canavan has been criticised over this tweet. The senator tweeted, "Does anyone know whether the Taliban will sign up to net zero?"
Yes, I actually believe that Afghanistan under the Taliban probably will commit to net zero before Australia because we're a nation run by climate terrorists, not jihadist ones. And speaking of not being prepared for an obvious impending catastrophe, the Australian government didn't appear to have a plan in place for getting Aussies and their mates out of the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan.
There are fears for 130 Australian citizens and more than 200 former embassy guards and interpreters.
We've had from April till now to think about what we were going to do, and here we are now at the 11th hour, caught short.
There's been a monumental failure by people in our government to foresee what was going to happen.
Yes, after months of knowing this was going to happen, the Morrison government was underprepared and caught short. I mean, from this government, really? What are the odds? So how did this happen? Well, Joe Biden decided to fulfill Donald Trump's plan to withdraw US troops from Afghanistan this year. And as the US left, well, the Taliban took over and filled the vacuum with astonishing speed.
There was only a cold reality of either following through on the agreement to withdraw our forces or escalating the conflict. We planned for every contingency, but I always promised the American people that I would be straight with you. The truth is, This did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated.
Yes, that's the kind of non-apology language when something unfolds exactly as you expected it to. It's a bit like when your girlfriend asks, how did you get so drunk at the poker game last night? Well, honey...
This did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated.
The US withdrawal and the very sudden collapse of Afghanistan to the Taliban shocked many pundits.
Critics calling it one of the greatest foreign policy failures in history.
When you see people falling off of a C-17 aircraft, when you see more and more troops having to go in against the crush of Taliban and people being abandoned to the Taliban, this is going to make Saigon look like Disney World in comparison.
No, sorry, wrong. This didn't make the fall of Saigon look like Disney World because the Taliban takeover itself looked like Disney World.
So confident the Taliban takeover, some giggled as they took to dodgem cars and the merry-go-round at a Kabul amusement park.
By the way, I heard the roller coaster kept derailing because they kept trying to drive it into the side of buildings. And if you think that joke's not fair to the Taliban, feel free to email me at dylan@newsfighters.com because I apologise to the Taliban. But also, here's something I thought I'd never say. John Howard backs me up.
And the Taliban, of course, which on occasions is completely indistinguishable from Al-Qaeda.
Yes, war criminal John Howard there, thank you. So why didn't local Afghan forces stay and fight the Taliban as everyone thought they would?
The speed of the Taliban's return, overwhelming an army 4 times larger and far better equipped, is being blamed on the corruption and illegitimacy of the government we were trying to prop up.
On the Afghan side, we had an inept, corrupt, and hopeless government. And most people thought, well, I'm not gonna die for this corrupt government. I'm just gonna switch sides. And if the Taliban are pretty harsh or really harsh, then we can always come back and pick up weapons and continue the fight. But for now, people had no will.
Yes, a corrupt and inept government that nobody believes in. Relatable. So yes, 20 years on from the Australian and US invasion of Afghanistan, it's an event that I remember well. I was a uni student doing work experience in the ABC newsroom in Canberra the day the invasion started. And at the time, in the wake of the horrific September 11 attacks, it all felt very justified and worthwhile. But now, 20 years on, with 41 Australian lives lost and $10 billion spent by us, what everyone's asking is, well, was it worth it? Well, some veterans don't think so.
It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth this. It wasn't worth what we are now exposing those who fought alongside us to, what we are now leaving the Afghan people to face alone.
But on the other hand, Scott Morrison reckons it was.
When asked if the sacrifice was worth it...
Freedom's always worth it. Australians have always believed that. Freedom's always worth it, fighting for it, whatever the outcome.
Yes, freedom's always worth fighting for. I hear that Kabul even managed to keep its Bunnings open during COVID. That's the kind of freedom that the Liberal Party loves standing up for. So, where to from here for Afghanistan? Well, with the Taliban in control, surely they will have to have a more modern attitude to the rights of women and girls this time. Right?
The Taliban claims they will allow women to get an education, but at the same time they haven't ruled out stonings and public executions for lawbreakers.
I can't say right now, but it is up to the courts, in the judges, in the laws.
Well, that sounds truly horrific, but maybe economically, all the billions of dollars we spent over the last 20 years in Afghanistan means that economically, we're leaving the country in better shape, right?
Corruption runs deep at national and provincial government level, and living standards are poor.
An awful lot of money was given to Afghanistan, and you go there and you wonder what happened to it. Kabul is still a city where most people don't have electricity. It's a very polluted city. Few people have clean water. The Kabul River is absolutely filthy that goes through the centre of the city. There are potholes everywhere. There are lots of people begging in the streets.
Okay. Surely the world is safer. Surely the world is a safer place from terrorism thanks to us occupying Afghanistan for 20 years, right? Joe Biden?
Today, the terrorist threat has metastasized well beyond Afghanistan. Al-Shabaab in Somalia, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, al-Nusra in Syria, ISIS attempting to create a caliphate in Syria and Iraq, and establishing affiliates in multiple countries in Africa and Asia.
Oh, God damn it. Well, at least they got an amusement park out of it.
Then you have the Taliban that set fire to an amusement park in Sheberghan.
The Taliban burnt the amusement park down? Ugh. Bloody hell, war is futile.